Some good habits for your health. The daily recommended walking is around 3,000 steps, which is updated information. There is a way to healthily snack between meals, and for example, you can consume non-starchy cruciferous vegetables such as kale with sweet potatoes, some nuts, and popcorn, for example. Or if you are on a ketogenic diet, or you are a woman who has read or consumed Dr. Mide Pelz's work, the recommendation is that in certain phases of your cycle you eat more fat. In fact, more than 50% of your diet should consist of those. And if you are one of those people who likes to indulge in a fatty snack here and there, such as an avocado or just some coconut sweet or something, then you can do that. And I recommend also Naomi Waddell's work, which is not necessarily based on hormonal shifts for women, but it is good in a general health related. It is a good health related book, and it has some recipes, and in it is a recipe called coconut balls, and it has strawberries in it, and there is also the chia snacks. So there are multiple options, and those latter two actually are for fat oriented meals and snacks. When the thing is that dopamine is released when you consume food, and so when you deprive yourself of that activity, the more used to it you have been, the more you may want to actually just replace the activity with something fun. So for example, you can read, you can drink water. It also fulfills your stomach. You can pray. You can do a lot of things, and exercise and sunlight has been shown to control hunger hormones and insulin. Maybe you want to consider daily exercise, but for beginners, I would not recommend doing it more than 3 times a week and for 30 to 35 minutes, because the more used to it you are, the more you may need. So the more adapted you can become. But in general, 30 to 35 minutes a day is a length of exercise that activates autophagy, and so that is really actually a basic need of a human. Again, the body definitely needs some time to recover and rest, no matter the circumstances, but a rest day or even a cold shower or even a sauna can relieve some of that accumulated muscle strain. So you should not ideally shower in between For example, 2 very physically active sessions of exercise, because cold showers really induce dopamine, and they are recommended in the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, they help you wind down as well, because cold showers tell the body to start producing melatonin in the afternoon or in the evening after consistent exposure to a warmer temperature. So cold showers can be useful both in the morning and in the afternoon or in the evening, but in general, Andrew Huberman recommends showering in cold water in the beginning of the day. I would definitely recommend this for men, because men function for dopamine and through and by dopamine, but women are a bit different, because women depend on serotonin just the same. And serotonin is basically a happy hormone similar to dopamine, but it is not around finding finding motivation and things like that. Is more about being content with one's way of life and one's way of being, and through that being inspired to take action, instead of being motivated to quote unquote hunt something down, like men tend to operate. And by the way, a man's daily level of testosterone is 10 times the level of that of a woman, because of gender differences. And by the way, a healthy woman also produces more testosterone than estrogen. Again, these are scientific information that might get updated as time goes on. So I do recommend that the topics that interest you the most, you kind of remember, but most of the things that I share are based on scientific data and research, if not all of them. So they are timeless. Many people, and especially nutritionists, do not recommend consuming a lot of oil. So, for example, even olive oil or coconut oil, because oil is not the most natural form of food. And the thing is that some oil can lead to good consequences. For example, again, in Naomi Widgell's book, the Glow 15, she writes how autophagy, an invention made by her, induces autophagy, because it combines green tea with black tea, which is a lot of caffeine already, and on top of it she puts a scoop of coconut oil or MCT oil, which is similar to coconut oil, if not mainly the same. And the fat that this tea contains essentially really kickstarts metabolism and just is good for overall satiation on a break, for example. The recipe is really simple. It combines green tea, one bag of black tea or Earl Grey, and a little bit of cinnamon. Although if you maybe have histamine intolerance or things like that, I do not recommend cinnamon. And again, coconut oil. So try replacing oils with natural good fats as much as possible. For example, nuts and seeds. Again, nuts and seeds can be a cause for sensitivity in many people. So the thing that I recommend about that is figure out what feels good to eat and do not consume the ones that do not feel good to your digestion. But another source of good fats is avocados. Again, coconut in any shape or form is really good for you. So um, unless you are, repulsed by its taste, I do recommend that as an oil. Even though there are many oils that the author of the paleo diet, who actually created that diet, writes that, for example, rapeseed oil has been shown to slow down metabolism and impact stool release, and oils like, peanut butter, generally, peanuts as a legume is, they are not the best because they also contain lectins, and they are an invention of a human species and not natural, so to speak, as a food. Another type of oil is sunflower oil. Is questionable because sunflower oil can be local and seasonal for most people, especially where I live. So, if it's the most affordable and actually not so harmful for you, then, do not just go cold turkey on everything and stop what you've been doing. Because sunflower oil is actually even better for you than rapeseed oil, which tends to hide in a lot of store-bought products, and it is surprising to me how many people do not read the labels on foods packages, because rapeseed oil, for example, is contained in so many products, and again, it's been shown to cause indigestion in mammals and humans. So I will talk more on this channel about eliminating oils and specifically what types of oils, and I will talk about what's specific foods to eliminate, because they are literally not compatible or good for the human body, and also what foods can be in between tolerable and unacceptable, and I will talk about what foods are best, and what foods are tolerable. I will go all in detail in the future, because I have already been studying this for a long time, and I have sources for these, such as Dr. Mark Hyman's work, which is the Pegan diet, and many other sources. So in general, the safest oils I would suggest to consume, if ever, are coconut oil, avocado oil, things that do not contain a lot of trans fatty acids, if I remember correctly, except coconut oil, because coconut oil is the exception for saturated fat percentage. By the way, these things are usually shown on the label, always. Another type of oil is definitely not walnut oil, because walnut oil is not recommended. I was surprised to hear that. Definitely not rapeseed oil. Sunflower oil is very questionable, but it is tolerated by the body, especially if it's used to it. again, more vegetables. What I mean by this is the more vegetables you eat, the easier you will digest, and the more your microbiome will heal on its own, and the healthier your gut will be, because vegetables provide this natural fiber-rich environment of ideal digestion. And so they not only contain a lot of nutrients that are essential for human health, they also contain a lot of fiber and carbohydrates at the same time, without taxing the nervous system or the digestive system so much because of their water content. Vegetables that have been, or vegetables or fruits that have been dried or, for example, processed with heat, for example, dried strawberries or raisins or dried figs, things like that. I do not recommend, because they are not good for your teeth, and what is not good for your teeth tends to be not so good for your health either. But again, I just want to add that because these products have been stripped of water only, they can be good. I tend to consume these products whenever I get access to them. For example, I get a gift of figs. I tend to soak them in water so that they are easier to eat, they are easier to digest, they're more natural, and they are not so, sticky, and they do not stick into my teeth. Speaking of vegetables that have been processed, I do not recommend, for the same reason, consuming pickles, because pickles are a form of fermented vegetable and they are not good for your teeth, unfortunately. So whenever you consume pickles, fermented vegetables or fruits, dried vegetables or fruits, sweets, even natural sweets, but especially processed sugary sweets, anything that tastes sweet except sweet potatoes, you should brush your teeth after them if your goal is to maintain good oral hygiene, which, by the way, is really good for your brain. Whenever you want to set goals for your health, set smart goals. Have your goals be specific, measurable, gradual, or realistic, and achievable, and timely. Have them be easy to plan, and maybe even find an accountability partner, because they will give you momentum and you can give them feedback. You can bounce off of each other on the way, and it can be really helpful. Some other health tips include: do meditate, especially these days when the economy and generally the workload has increased, and the economy is not at its highest. I do recommend meditating because it can detach you from the motion of everyday life. I do recommend stretching, especially for women, because men tend to refuse to stretch in my area because they do not consider it manly, so to speak. But women, I feel like they should be, prescribed stretching. And with that, I feel like men would benefit from it immensely also, because stretching is the complementary alternative and movement and form of exercise, even for any strength training or stamina oriented exercise such as running or walking or hiking, stretching really does give your muscles a break. It helps you recover. It is a form of recreation, and for women, the reason I emphasize it is more important in my opinion is because women are generally more reliant on flexibility due to their feminine essence and their womanhood. And sometimes a woman can find a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning in mental flexibility, but even those women I feel like would only increase their level of well-being by stretching. And when you do stretching, I do recommend hyperbolic stretching and not just doing it like on autopilot without even considering what you're doing. I do have a lot of gymnastics and dance background, so I do know how to stretch, but I have also been practicing hyperbolic stretching. I have been trying dynamic stretches, and still I insist on static movements when it comes to stretching because I feel like they are more like they are safer for the body. You can predict that movement more, and in general stretching it has a nature of being slower than general exercise. So the reason I recommend stretching to be more static than dynamic is because of this. Once I have been told by gymnastics coach that stretching should never be done dynamically. So for example, if you see someone stretch, for example, their head is on their knees and they're hugging their legs and they do this movement of back and forth bouncing with their head, that is not good for you because it is not necessary. For example, you can try yoga, but many people do not like yoga because it is so involving of conscious engagement of focusing on intensity, that many people do not have the patience to do it. But if you try it just once, you will realize why it's so well known. It's because those types of static stretches that yoga contains, they do only good for the body, honestly. And while they are almost spiritual, and definitely spiritual already for many people, if not most, who do it, they can also just be focusing on the movement of the body. So in that way it is a form of exercise, but the way it is not a regular exercise is it's slow, static, and just calm, peaceful oriented structure. So for example, you can stretch your legs one at a time by standing and bending one of your knees and then keeping the pose and then switching to the other leg. You can switch like every 5 seconds, but again, if you do not wait that out, that 5 seconds is shorter. As for the waiting period that you switch between legs, then the exercise will not be as effective or efficient. So okay, that is for yoga and stretching. Very important, actually. Sleep is is such a complex topic. It's being researched more and more, and I'm glad that it is such a focus of scientists, and that this is a new field of research, because sleep honestly is essential for everyone. And the more you sleep in a deep sleep state, the better you will recover. And muscles and brain need a specific depth of sleep. If I remember correctly, the deepest state of sleep is delta waves. You have alpha, you have every stage in between the first most shallow sleep and then the deepest type of sleep, which is delta. And in delta, you recover the most intensely in the shortest amount of time. And if I remember correctly, you only hit that once during the night. So, for example, shift workers, people who do not sleep during the night, they tend to never ever get to that stage of sleep, which is interesting how they survive. But in general, bedtime can be a personal topic. It can be very, very based on schedule and just how your circadian rhythm functions. But there are good tests in Naomi Whittle's book for what type of sleeper you are. And if you want me to do that, I can share that test with you so they can figure out whether you are an early bird or a night owl, for example. Because it is true that the older we get or the more we age, the earlier we tend to go to sleep and the earlier we tend to wake up, and even the shorter we tend to sleep for. So one thing about sleep is that it is very personal always, but we all need it, and we need it a lot. And the quality of sleep generally matters more. But for women, especially during the days before their periods, they depend on sleep especially much more because of progesterone, which is a female hormone made to calm a woman's nervous system and cozy in, so to speak. So literally, a woman before her period is very, very prone to reaching for foods that make her feel comfortable. And in that case, it is not unhealthy to eat potatoes, for example, not crisps or chips, but generally potatoes, sweet potatoes, roots and vegetables like that, and skip the carrots. Again, Dr. Mindy Pelz talks about this, and I really appreciate that. Find community support, because social health is just as important, if not more important, than physical maintenance of your health, because social health can produce physical health. Part of the reasons why is due to contact comfort, which is a scientifically shown release of oxytocin whenever you get physically touched by another or whenever you touch someone physically. So for example, oxytocin gets released in both sexes, but for women they rely on it more because their other hormones are not really as dominant as in men. Surprise, surprise. But oxytocin gets released upon contact comfort. and upon being grateful or giving appreciation, upon using love languages, um, petting a dog even. So this hormone actually calms down the nervous system and is directly related to social health and social environment. And so it is not true necessarily that you should isolate yourself just because you're being treated in unkind ways, because we physically need each other always. And the reason why the human species is so particularly special is not because it's superior to other animals or mammals, but it's because of language and brain utilization. And nevertheless, we do tend to spend time alone due to our jobs and work and study, but contact comfort remains on the top of the list when it comes to things needed for survival. Somehow, this remains that mammals tend to be more social than other animals already. So, for example, take a deer, take a dog. But if you compare those with other mammals like cats or hamsters or rodents in general, you will see a slight difference between their social needs and requirements due to their night hunter or um, carnivore or other omnivore lifestyles mainly. But generally speaking, most mammals rely on social group thinking the most in grand, indescribable ways. And the reason why dogs or wolves evolved to be close to humans so much is because of the similarity between the two species needs for social closeness physically. So physical closeness. And I just want to again remind you that a human connection is as important for a human as is deer connection for a deer. Again, diet can actually influence things, but generally if we are talking about the average human, we do need a lot of social contact. When it comes to self-care, I would really recommend focusing on appearance and self-presentation, because these things tend to be undervalued or glazed over by a lot of people, and those people generally do not know where to start. The thing is that health is necessary for our success, but self-presentation that is profitable, so to speak, only tends to come as a consequence of success. But I do believe in a kind of a placebo of self-presentation, because the more you show your self-respect, the more you behave as though, and the more healthy you will become as such. Because self-respect is a wanted ideal. It is not out of this world. It is not unrealistic or unachievable. Self-respect is something that can be obtained by everyone. And when it comes to, for example, discipline in areas of life like sexual behavior, food control, self-control around food in general, and thinking about what you say before you say those things like that. These things tend to add up, and when a person really does focus on the mental field of showing themselves and other people respect, it tends to show on their appearance as well. So even more than focusing on appearance, I would suggest and recommend you focus on self-respect, because we all have a level of shame inside us that has been put inside us for a reason. And I'm not talking about guilt, because guilt is something different. I'm talking about the unspoken or unpopular opinion of quote unquote make shame great again, because I feel like we have come to live in a society that really has shamelessly kind of let itself go in a way, and that is, I believe, partly due to the abandonment of religion and religious doctrines, and in general religious scriptures tend to talk a lot about respecting others, respecting yourself, respecting the daily habits of humankind. And for example, in the Bible, it is written that if you fast, wash your face, or if you sleep over, you sleep somewhere and you wake up the next day, change your top to just show everyone, but most especially God, respect. So I do not want you to confuse religion with self-respect, because like those things can overlap, but they are not one and the same. You do not have to be religious to respect yourself and others and have a level of grace and sophistication to your appearance. You do not have to not be religious, on the other hand, to let yourself go. But this is also kind of related to setting goals in a smart way, because goals tend to focus you on a certain path. And so the more emotionally inspired you are, for example, the better you tend to stick to your goals. And this impacts your brain functions and your overall outlook on life. And everything tends to revolve around goals these days, and that is for a very good reason. It's because we live in a world of mental function and brain health. And when you achieve something, regardless of your gender or background, it tends to increase your confidence, because it increases self-trust. In my native language, self-trust and confidence are actually the same word. So I do not want you to confuse the words self-esteem with confidence, because these two can kind of exist independently. So setting good goals that inspire and motivate you, that are very specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, can be a way to get you focused on a goal, to get your mental state together in a way, and as such increase your health in and of itself, because the path is what matters. For those of you who have not been obsessed enough with natural medicine and health in general, because of whatever reason, I recommend it's not a doctor, he's not a doctor, I believe Andreas Moritz's work, who wrote the book The Gallbladder and Liver Flash. It is a book for people with intestinal or generally organ struggles, so to speak. And it's surprising to me how effective the flash can actually be. I have heard reviews that said that it literally saved them from surgery, which would have been life-saving already. So naturopathy can be a very nuanced and well-researched field of science even, or a form of healthcare. But Andreas Moritz is special because he writes in such detail and density that you once you start reading, you kind of never have enough, the more obsessed you are with the topic, because natural healthcare is one of those things that generally does not really get involved by pharmaceutical companies, advertisements, for example, or just in general big pharma and traditional modern medicine, unfortunately. But Andreas Moritz writes a lot of things in his book, Timeless Secrets of Health and Rejuvenation. And in it, I read that, for example, it is beneficial to finish eating upon 2/3 of fullness instead of eating until you're full. Portion control can be hard for a lot of people because they lack a sense of scarcity in their life already, in a way. Whereas, if I can say that, other addicts have already kind of got used to self-control in other areas of life, and so they find it easier to control the portion size even while they're eating. And also, I just want to remind everyone who's listening to this that there is a level of and a type of mannerism that can help digestion, literally. And I know that it may sound weird to a lot of people at first, because we do not tend to talk about, again, self-presentation as a form of health preservation. But the thing is that these two correlate, and so the more you respect yourself while you are eating, the better you tend to feel afterwards, because the more it impacts you on an emotional level. And gratitude is actually kind of ritualistic. It is very recommended before meals, because you can, pray before a meal to give thanks for it to God or anyone. You can just focus on things to be grateful for. You can focus on the flavor and the look and the smells of the food. But the thing is that because food is so emotional for most people, in order to even have taste, it already is a form of, or a source of, appreciation. So missing out on the opportunity to give thanks before a meal is something that speaks to me of a life of rush and hustle and non-rest. And I do not recommend that because of the unique nature of eating together, or even consuming a meal that you prepared for yourself in a way that shows respect for yourself and the food that you eat. When I talk about manners, what I want to emphasize and draw attention on is not just how you hold your fork and knife, and how you lift your glass, how you drink from your glass, how you wipe your mouth before taking a sip, how you put your utensils before leaving the table, what you do not do at the table. I'm also talking about basics that really are very unpopular among households members, because taking a portion that you got out for yourself and then not eating it can be as, you know, much a lie as leaving food on the table after you finished everything and just leaving it for others to dispose of your food. So if you for example, if you're at home and you're alone and you're eating alone, or solo, I recommend that you stick to mannerisms, you do stick to etiquette rules as much as you can and as much as you know about them, because food can be a ritual, and it is a ritual, and that is, humans generally have evolved in such social environments that food and eating together shape their whole structure of life and lifestyle, and as such, thinking. So, we are animals, we are mammals, but we are not at the same time. But I believe that this is partly and mainly due to the way that we eat. So, if you take a portion for yourself, no matter if you are in a social environment or not, just take as much as you can consume. And if you do not do that, then it's also fine. But just remember that you can be flexible with the rule of 2/3 fullness, if you have already been, very disciplined around how much you even put on your table. The reason I say that is because it just makes no sense to take a portion on your table and then not finish it because of this rule that you should finish eating after 2/3 fullness. But I do believe that it's also acceptable if you consume a dessert, for example, to kind of make up for that little bit of emptiness in your stomach. And I do recommend dessert, mainly in the form of low glycemic fruits such as kiwis, even citrus fruits, and things like that, because of the taste, honestly. Because carbohydrates come best in the end of a meal, and because fruits are so mainly carbohydrates and fast absorbing carbohydrates due to the fructose and the sugars in it, they literally sit best at the end of a meal or alone completely. And by the way, if you would like to, or if you want to regulate your blood sugar by consuming fruits in the beginning of a meal, I would suggest that you wait at least 30 minutes before eating anything else. Or even when it comes to consuming raw vegetables or anything raw and full of water, I do recommend that you wait at least 30 minutes before a meal. Nevertheless, doing that will increase your digestion. Even just sipping on a little bit of apple cider vinegar that has been diluted with, say, 1/8 portion water. Sorry, apple cider vinegar with an amount of water that is 7 times the amount of the apple cider vinegar can increase digestion and just generally reduce insulin levels on time. So apple cider vinegar is good, but it's just not very hands-on of a tactic, so to speak, to implement in your daily routine necessarily. Not for most people, at least. So, if, for example, you have a little bit of time before bed and you feel a little bit hungry, and you don't even want to consume anything fatty or so light as a fruit, for example, you can drink a little bit of diluted apple cider vinegar, because it will lower your blood sugar levels, and then you will be able to sleep better and tackle the next day better. When it comes to eating in general, having self-control and common sense around food is very beneficial. So again, when it comes to portion size, common sense comes in the picture, because you wouldn't put something on your table that you wouldn't eat, would you? And also, self-control is important because after you have portioned yourself a meal and a type of food that is in front of you, you only have self-control to kind of moderate the pace with which you eat. So both are important. By the way, an underrated, valuable piece of information is how important timing is, because the timing of a meal, according to Dr. Minda Peltz, can be as important as the meal itself, as what is on the plate and upon serving. So the reason why timing is important, because it has been scientifically shown that the human body is adapting to when you eat, when it gets access to food, because of the role that during the day everyone eats, and during the night everyone sleeps. And so the circadian rhythm is influenced by consumption a lot, and I mean a lot. And nevertheless, you cannot really skip sunlight for such an extended period of time. If, for example, you sleep during the day and you eat during the night, and during the day there is sunlight outside, but you do not access it because you work shifts, for example, you cannot really depend on just controlling your diet only, because your body will know when the sun comes up. Your hormones will be adapted to that as well. Timing is also important because of portion size. In the Bible, it is written that 3 times a day is generally recommended, but I have discovered that people who are advocates for intermittent fasting tend to skip meals, including myself, and I even tend to skip days of eating sometimes, because I realize that scarcity is my basic need, and fasting can be good for me. So, do take the 3 times a day eating rule as scripture, but at the same time keep an open mind to kind of adjusting to the circumstances and snacking when you can, instead of consuming a large meal, or snacking when you really do feel like you need it. Many people do not prefer snacking, or many experts say that snacking is not the best because of the blood sugar response. But my opinion again is that there are, for example, ketogenic snacks such as Naomi Whittle's coconut balls or chia clusters, things like that. And because when you consume a light snack such as some yogurt with some fruit, you reduce your anxiety levels. There have been people who have been arrested for driving in a way that was not legal multiple times, and they just couldn't figure out why they got arrested 5 times for driving when they never even drank alcohol. And it was because of their anxiety levels, because they drove insane when they were very anxious. And on the other hand, when they started consuming 4 or 5 times a meal, when they started consuming meals 4 or 5 times a day, they calmed down and they never got into trouble again. So snacking actually decreases your anxiety levels, which is why for women, I just want to emphasize that progesterone requires you to snack. Like it literally calls you to snack as much as possible around that phase of your cycle when you were meant and called to calm down and just focus inward a little bit more. And also between days 10 and 15 of your cycle. So in those times, do consume carbohydrates more. Now, you can also time snacks, but the thing is that waiting on average 3 hours between meals is recommended. For example, you can wake up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and then eat your first meal at 9. You eat your lunch at 12 or noon. You eat your snack at 3 p.m. and then you go to bed with a dinner at 6 p.m. And the reason that can be good is because, again, it is less intense than just 1 or 2 or 3 meals a day, but it is not, tight, not so tight that it will confuse your body as to why you eat so much and so often. Now, generally the recommended water dosage is 8 glasses of water a day, but I personally have been going to a laser clinic to get my tattoo removed. So I was required to drink 3-4 liters a day, which is a lot. And honestly, I have stuck to that rule. And I have experienced that my metabolism increased and my overall well-being and self-esteem even improved, even though there have been days when I literally just didn't want to do anything, not even drink a glass of water. But in general, drinking a lot of water tends to, in my opinion, increase body temperature, and as such, people tend to lose weight as a result. And this is a scientific fact as well, that people lose weight if they drink more water. But sticking to the 8 glasses of water a day, you will not do anything bad for your body. The 8 glasses are really the minimum, But if you do not go over that, your body will also kind of calm down to the fact that you are not drinking a lot. And when you combine that with good diet and food quality, you will literally just do the best, because when you consume a lot of food with high water content, you do not actually need a lot of water. So, I also discovered that the more water I drank, the more I started craving foods that were like snacks, like dry, crispy, and things like that. They did not contain a lot of water. And it was also because I knew that I was going to drink a lot of water. And I think that if you drink less water and consume more high water foods, you do better for your body. So it's true from Andreas Moritz that you should not overdo drinking water. But drinking water also helps you sleep, actually, because melatonin production is enabled by water ingestion. So there are also foods that you can consume to improve sleep quality, but generally water is a huge solution to most health issues. And I know this is a broad statement, but it's there. I have a funny story. I used to attend a high school where I learned English for the first time, and we always listen to these listening exercises. And so in one, we had a woman talk to a man who had an illness, and the woman just kept repeating, just drink water, just drink water. And we had to fill out the blank of what the man said as the exercise itself. But what the woman always said, just drink water. And it was so funny because it was so repeated and recurring, but it was true. I think we all learned to drink water from that day on. Now, when it comes to exercise, I just want to speak a little bit more about that. Consistency is key. If you buy a gym membership for 1 month and you decide to leave the gym afterwards, that's even better than if you never had gone to that gym, or if you had been forcing yourself to exercise for a year. But the thing is that exercise is so special because it activates autophagy, it strengthens your muscles, which are, by the way, such a good gateway to your health, because the more muscle you have, the more sustained your health can be, and the more resilient you are to even illnesses. Exercise is so special because it is personal. How you exercise is just as important as what you wear, for example, when you exercise. But definitely, I would say that it is the most important thing that you do things with good form without taxing your joints and bones, and that you warm up before exercise. I used to be an athlete and I used to not warm up all the time, and now I suffer the consequences. Now I have to compensate with stretching more and in general slow static movements. So because exercise is so versatile, and even just holding a plank for 2 minutes can be regarded as exercise, I just really want you to increase consistency over the quantity or even the intensity of your workouts, because you can force yourself to move your body physically, but your body will want to move sooner or later anyway. And do not ignore the fact that you know what's right for you. And if, for example, you have been ceasing to exercise for 2 weeks and now suddenly you feel that it is the right time to do something about it, do not ignore your intuition. Or if you haven't been exercising in 3 days and you know that recommended weekly dosage of exercise is actually 120 minutes at least, do not just skip your workouts because you know what's right for you. But sometimes life happens and you cannot always follow a perfect routine or consistency. Then forcing yourself despite is literally too violent for you sometimes. So just don't do it. We always hear people say just do it, but I say just don't do it. So find this balance of righteousness and wantedness. Find this balance of knowing the form, knowing what's proper and righteous, and also just embracing the fact that you like to exercise, that it's good for you. And, bedroom exercises can also increase autophagy, so you can replace your regular exercise routine with a little bit of sheet gymnastics here and there, but only if you have a partner. I would say yeah, okay. Maybe not, but I would suggest that you do it with a partner, because doing it alone can be a bit more boring, So this is for today.